Okay, so first question says, in reviewing your data, what did you discover? Hence, did the data reflect things you already knew? What surprised you about your data? So Adrienne, do you want to start?
Yes, I will start. So I had both. There were things that I kind of anticipated and things that I did not. By the way, I had very little data. I had 2 classes in 1 semester. So, so first off, I know I have a very low African-American enrollment. In fact, it didn't even show up in my data. I think it's very low. I have a pretty equal enrollment for people for Latinx and white, and then I think I even have a higher enrollment for Asian. The part I was a little surprised about, and where I do plan on sort of focusing my efforts, is that the retention and success rates for Latinx students was lower than students from white and Asian groups. And so that is where, like I said, that's where I'm going to focus my efforts. How about you, Rachel?
So I think we probably all have that same first thought in common. We kind of knew what to expect, but it was nice to get the data at that granular level to really see, to confirm kind of what we were thinking. So similar to you, I had low African-American enrollments and then relatedly low success and retention rates. But I think in the data we'd previously gotten, I didn't realize how. I think because there were so few enrolled, it really masked how poor the retention success rates were. And I think that goes for a lot of, for the Latinx students too, though it's better than the African-American students. So that was sort of, you know, I think I wrote in my action plan, or I talked about somewhere, that it's something you know, but it's hard to look at. And that's why I really liked looking at it, because it forces you to realize things, or just think about maybe why those numbers are low, and start the whole action plan process to address those issues. So I don't know if anything was very surprising, but definitely hard to look at some of those numbers. Tasha?
Yeah, I think you're right, Rachel. It really was hard to look at some of the numbers, and in computer science, we do tend to have fairly low enrollment of many underrepresented groups, and some of the enrollment numbers were so low that I couldn't even look at subgroups to say, hey, who's doing well and who's not. And so instead of focusing on different groups based on ethnicity or even gender, I looked at online versus on campus. And I knew that my online success rates were not as good as my on-campus success rates, but it turned out it was like half the level. And so I really want to make sure that I reach out to students who are in the online class and try to bring up those numbers, because I think that will help a lot. And I did notice that the online classes seem to have more students who were in underrepresented groups enrolled in them in the first place. So my hope is that by focusing in the online area, that I will also get the double benefit of reaching those other groups.
The online distinction is really interesting, and I actually wish I had data in that area to look at as well. I'm glad you're taking a look at that. So are we ready for number 2?
Yeah, I think our conversation's leading us that way.
All right. Please describe how learning about your data has led you to create your action plan. Oh, I think I already started answering that in the first one.
That's what I'm saying.
Bad me.
Yeah, I think we may have answered that already.
Yeah, I do. I think I can jump in on that one and just add one thing just to go on with Tasha's. I think that looking at my online retention success rates of all groups, and in particular the Latinx and African-American students, made me want to focus on that data. I know it seems like it's low-hanging fruit, but those numbers are, like you were saying, almost half, or like a third or whatever, 2/3. I'm not good at percentages just off the top of my head, but you know, there's like a substantial difference between my face-to-face or hybrid courses and fully online. So it seems like, let's target, not low-hanging fruit, but that's where I can make that, I think I can target most of that impact on those groups, and then, you know, those changes I make, I can transition to my hybrid and face-to-face classes too. So that's how my data led me to my action plan.
When you're talking about low-hanging fruit, I think the low-hanging fruit is the place to go, right? If there's something that we can do that can impact a large group, why not? It seems like a great place to start.
Yeah.
Adrienne,
Yes.
did you want to, you both feel comfortable that you've answered number 2?
Well, yeah, so I mentioned that, so I am, since that's where I saw low rates of success in the Latinx, that is where I'm going to focus. But I also am, like you guys are mentioning too, there's certain things that, were suggested in the Strong Workforce Institute that I wasn't doing with particularly my online students, since that's kind of who I have to look at right now. Anyway, yeah.
So who wants to summarize their action plan first?
Oh, can I?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Adrienne.
Not all at once.
Yeah, so I would say my action plan is sort of broken into two different groups. Things that I want to do to improve overall success and retention, and then things I'm doing that are targeting, again, that Latinx community that we discussed earlier. And so things I'm doing to kind of just hopefully improve overall rates would be, I haven't done a lot of contacting students prior to the semester, so I've actually done that already this semester. We'll see how that goes. Unfortunately, not as early as I'd have liked, but that's okay. And then also just trying to do, what else was it? Oh, putting more videos, just even explaining like how to do assignments and things like that, so that people aren't stuck on, the mechanics of doing the assignments, of dealing with Canvas, of dealing with Zoom, and are really more focused on actually dealing with the content that we're trying to teach them. The other half of my action plan, well, probably depending on how this works, maybe 3/4, is I am toying with the idea and researching the idea of taking my computer science class, this is C++ programming, and seeing if there are ways that I can produce or come up with content that is in Spanish that would maybe give people in the Latinx community, and I know not everybody in the Latinx community may speak Spanish or may have grown up with that in the household, but for those who have, maybe having this in a language that they may be more familiar with, or just having it in a second language to look at it from a different perspective might be helpful for them.
Or just even that there are people like in the careers that reflect who they look like, whether they speak Spanish or not, knowing that there's other computer scientists out there that are Latinx would be helpful too.
Yes, yeah, and I'm actually working with John Fawcett in the work-based learning program to bring in, we're gonna try to bring in a speaker. I'm hoping from SHIP would be great. I don't know if you're familiar with SHIP. It's the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, and that would be great. But yes, I'd actually want to have somebody come in, and it's an online class, asynchronous, so it's going to be interesting. But I was thinking of trying to do like a Zoom session where I solicit questions prior to it so that they don't have to be there for it. And then just kind of hopefully have a very frank conversation with this person that they can later look at, or if they're available, see that person live. So yeah, so that's one part of it. And then the other part is the content. And I've even looked at some C++ textbooks that have a Spanish version and an English version, so that they would have that option if that's something that they were interested in. So, and then continuing down the road, trying to get more and more of the content, including like Canvas pages and, maybe getting subtitles of videos done in Spanish and things like that as well. So that's me.
Cool.
Sounds like a really good idea.
Yeah.
What about you, Rachel?
So my idea, like I mentioned, really focusing on some of the African-American students and Latinx students. And like we've talked before, we don't have a ton of African-American students in our classes, but I think it's important that in the process of recruiting those students or students that are not traditionally represented, that the class is already set up to support them whenever, or really set up to support everyone, but taking that time to make sure that everyone's supported. So I mentioned I was going to focus on some of the online classes. So a lot of the things Adrienne mentioned, I've already updated some language in my syllabus. I've implemented a survey this fall, and I used it this summer too to try to test it out. And so this fall, it's already been helpful. Sort of one of the questions are, what kind of what kind of computer are you working on at home? And that's been great for them to say, you know, I'm working on a tablet. I can say, it's not going to work for this class. Here's the link, run a laptop, get them, you know, when they call you, you have to tell them you need a laptop for GIS, so they do not give you a Chromebook. But just kind of, you know, I can get that feedback and get it out to them immediately and hopefully, you know, boost those retention and success rates, whoever they are. I want to start like in the first 2 weeks of class, having my office hours dedicated to like tech support. So knowing that those first 2 weeks, like just pop in, you don't have to ask a question about the class, but if you're having trouble logging on, or like Adrienne is saying, the content I put on Canvas to help you understand, nothing to do with material, just the like getting started package is, you know, I'll be there and available to help you. If I have to hold your hand to install software, I can do that. It's, you know, I've done it a million times and it's not easy to install. And then things like, I've noticed I get a lot of drops after the midterm or right before the midterm, or people just stop showing up. So I'm looking forward to using the Message Students Who feature and kind of being more active and present and paying attention to when students miss like 2 assignments in a row. You know, reminders about the midterms, you know, leading up to it, a lot more reminding. Yeah, I tested this summer a makeup midterm. So some, you know, students, usually a couple students don't take the midterm, and I check in like, what happened? Where are you? What do you need? And, you know, if they just had a rough time, like, well, why don't you take this makeup midterm? And it worked. You know, only one student got back to me and wanted to take the makeup midterm. The other 2 ended up withdrawing, but I think I just was happy that one person was like, yeah, it was just not a good week for me. Thank you for this opportunity. And, you know, giving them the benefit of the doubt. And like Adrienne was talking about, making sure that students feel represented in the field when they go out, you know, where's the strong workforce? We want to go out and make sure they get jobs. So working with Sean and working with work-based learning and some of my previous students to produce some sort of like, whenever we can be in public with other people, but day in the life videos of students showing what they do now that they've graduated. Students always really like when I have former students come into class and talk about their career path, whether they're former students with me or alumni before I came to Mesa. It's really helpful. So I think having that day in the life type videos, or what do I do? What can you do? How did I get started? I think will be really helpful. Is just knowing like where their place is, that there is a place for them, that they can succeed, and that, you know, do well in classes, and you can make a video for me in a couple of years. So that's my plan. Yeah,
I don't know if you need to wait until things get back to normal. I mean, just even like having them go through the software and what they're doing on the software every day, or whatever they're doing remotely, I think would be super cool too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Just a matter of that. I have in the spring. So
okay.
That's something I'm going to be working on this fall. But because it's, you know, it's a lot of online courses, and I'm trying to really focus on being not more present, but like knowing when I'm getting burnout with my online courses to sort of prevent that by doing these sort of more regular check-ins and more regular reaching out. So it's not like after the midterm, like, where are these 5 people? My numbers are going to look terrible. You know, it's sort of like if we front load all the help with the software and with Canvas or with whatever, maybe I'll have to do like less, this sounds bad, but like less troubleshooting as the semester goes on, and therefore get less burnout on like, it's this button.
No, I think that's super important. Like I've already, I used to have that issue with my C++ classes all the time because they have to install the tool chain for it. And so I went to an online compiler, and like so much nicer. So, I mean, I don't know if you don't, I think, have that luxury because your software is so specific, but I think you're absolutely right for focusing on that.
So we'll see.
And I think catching students earlier and being able to help them catch up when they still can is really important. And that actually relates a little bit to my project.
Oh, cool.
So I mentioned I'm really focusing on the online students, and something that I have anecdotally noticed, so I don't have hard data, but just anecdotally I've noticed that students who report that they are working in study groups with other online students seem to be more successful in the class. And so I wanted to provide a way for students to have a more formalized study group. And I still have to figure out exactly how I'm going to group students together, but I'm thinking I'll have students group together, 6 to 8 students, maybe based on when they're available to meet each week, since if they're signing up for an asynchronous class, there's a possibility they might not have time. So I'll have them group 6 to 8 students and then ask them to meet once a week to touch base with each other, to talk about the material, what they're understanding, what they're not understanding, and then submit a written summary to me about their meeting. And so that will encourage some student-to-student interaction. But in addition to them sending me a written summary, or rather in lieu of a written summary, each week I'll visit 2 to 3 of the groups during their meeting times so that I'm actually talking to them and they can ask me questions. It'll be almost like office hours specifically for that particular group. And I'm hoping that that will make them feel more comfortable actually coming to my official office hours. I did start a Meet the Instructor via Zoom assignment that was required in the first 2 weeks. And I noticed after I did that I had more students actually coming to office hours because they felt comfortable with Zoom. They knew how to use it. They knew that it was a powerful tool. And so I'm hoping that by having these study groups that are reporting back on what they're understanding, what they're not understanding, I'll be able to sort of catch students who are struggling earlier in the term and be able to help with an intervention and say, hey, here's where you need some extra help, point them to resources, tutoring, office hours, etc., and really be able to provide a higher level of support for them that mirrors what I'm able to do in a face-to-face class when I actually see the students twice a week. So I'm hoping that that will work well. I'm also planning to have individual meetings with students, like 5-minute meetings with students at 3 different places during the term, just to talk about how they're doing in the class and to be able to offer any additional support as needed. And 5 minutes is welcome to stretch to 15 if needed, but I'm figuring I'll limit it to 5 minutes to start with, or I'll encourage it to be 5 minutes so that it doesn't become an overbearing task that just takes too much time.
And I think too, for the students' sake, I always, when they have to do their discuss with me their final project ideas, they're like, "What? How do I gotta schedule this with you?" No, it's 5 minutes. Let's just, when it's face-to-face class, it's 5 minutes. Let's just do it before class starts. 5 minutes, and it takes a lot of pressure off them. So knowing they just have to check in with you for 5 minutes, it's probably in knowing they just have to check in with you for 5 minutes, but that they have the option to extend. I think they'll appreciate that. Not as much pressure.
Scheduling can really be a challenge, but I've had several people recommend the Calendly tool.
Yeah, I'm trying that this semester.
Oh, good. Let me know how that works out.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm assuming it sends you emails if someone schedules a meeting. I have to double check that part. Anyway,
I tried to do ConferZoom that's within Canvas. Mm-hmm. That was a nightmare.
Yeah, I tried.
It's the time zones aren't set up right. People are coming at the wrong time. So it was,
didn't work.
So if you have another option, I would totally love to see it.
I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we may have covered some of the remaining questions that we have, but maybe we have more to add. So question 4 is, what strategies will you implement to carry out your action plan? And I'm going to jump in. There was one thing I didn't mention is I want to come up with some questions to help guide students in their weekly meetings.
That's good.
Do either of you have anything to add?
Hey, for question 4, I think not.
I think I discussed all of them.
Yeah, I think I kind of talked about it too.
When will you? Oh, that's yours. Sorry.
Oh, that's right. As I mumble it to myself over here. Yes. When will you be implementing your action plan?
So most of mine. Whatever.
Rachel.
Most of mine, I'm gonna start. So I've started testing some things this summer and doing it in the surveys, like I said already, in the fall, and then working on the more expansive, the more expansive things in the spring. I will say one thing I'm going to go back to with Tasha and talking about Zoom is that with the spring semester, I was really worried about how it was going to go on Zoom, but I feel like you know, one of the questions I think, Tasha, you used in your class, someone used this in that opening surveys. Have you ever successfully completed, or have you ever successfully taken an online course before? How many, or what are your concerns about taking an online course? A lot of students are like, I was really nervous in the spring, but I got through it and I feel good about, like, I feel like I can do it. So I'm hoping that the forced conversion will also help boost my retention and success. Cause just even like, this summer, people were coming to my office hours, and I never had people come to my online office hours before. So I don't know if it was just they were comfortable with it or what, but I think it's like that forced into online learning, forced to seeking out that help, and a lot of people are excited about it. So that's nothing to do with implementing my action plan, but.
So you bring up a really good point, Rachel. I think that it would be interesting to take a look in a few years at online success rates and see if they increase for a while after our forced conversion to remote teaching, and then if they decrease again once face-to-face becomes a bit
an
more
option
again. Yeah, an option.
Yeah. Well, I think it depends on a lot of things. All of us are obviously fabulous online teachers, but it'll be interesting to see. It will be interesting to see how much better students do.
Yeah, I think just even seeing the data for enrollment rates after we go back to, hopefully after we go back to on campus over time, like I'm curious, like if we'll, I think when things open up, we'll just suddenly see like everybody will want to be on campus because it's like, oh my God, we can do this again. But I'm wondering if over time it'll kind of slowly, timeline will like slowly pick up again. So anyway, I'm off topic.
I think I mentioned last off topic, a student the other day was like, I'm so excited to interact with people outside of my house. Like,
yeah, I know.
Anyway,
yeah.
anyone need any assistance on implementing your action plan?
Oh, I haven't said when I'm going to implement mine
I'm
yet.
sorry.
I don't have a chance to implement until spring because the course I'm teaching, I won't be teaching again until spring.
We have a lot of time to think. What kind of help do you need in the spring then?
Sneaking that in there, huh?
Lots of extra time. If somebody can invent something to let me pause time and get work done.
Yeah, sweet.
I think
talk to Monica about that. I think that's in there somewhere on
that's in the budget.
Our workforce. Yeah.
I think too, just like continue, the granularity of that data was really helpful. So being able to maybe fall of 2021, when we've completed this one round, this first year of implementing our action plans, that if data and research could pull that same level of data again, so we could see if we move the needle or not.
Yeah, that would be really helpful.
Because otherwise, what's the point?
So mine, I'm going to need somebody to translate stuff for me. So I don't know if that's something where we'd have budget for trying to hire or find resources for that. I would love to say that I'm fluent in Spanish. I am so far from it. It's like,
what if you work with the Spanish department?
Yeah. That would be fine. I would love that actually. I just don't know if that's, I haven't talked to them, and I don't even really know anybody over there, but you know, I'm not sure how it would integrate or if they would need funding or, you know, all of that stuff. So Monica? That is actually, yes, that is actually something I would like to discuss with the Strong Workforce team. So,
you know, it might be something too to talk to the HSI STEM grant people. So like Letty might be, Letty Lopez might have some ideas on where to get funding for that.
Yeah, I think that would be also a good resource. So. Yeah, I think I'm through 1 through 6 then.
Anyone else have anything to add?
Applause. All right, then I'm going to stop the recording.
Bye-bye.